Thank you, Governor.
All right, there. Okay. It's important that we take a stand and support those who are on the front line of protecting us. Things like firearms are matters that we have to take very seriously in our state. With respect to our rail transportation, our state has every railroad in the country crisscrossing Illinois. And it's very important that when there are rail shipments, that we use all of law enforcement to come to bear if there's any kind of question about theft or loss of property. We cannot just rely only on the railroad police. We salute their efforts, but we've learned from the United Transportation Union and other sheriffs across the county, across the state, that this is an area that we must pay very close attention to. And Sheriff Dart will explain how firearms and other weapons can be in these rail shipments, and we need to make sure that we use all of law enforcement to apprehend anyone who would try to take firearms from a rail car and use it for malicious purposes. And I think we all know what those purposes are. This has been a very tragic week in Illinois. Lost a police officer, a wonderful man, Michael Bailey, last Sunday. In this past couple months, we've lost 2 other officers to gun violence, very special people, Thomas Wortham and also Thor Soderberg, who was buried last week. I think it's also important to recognize that there are many, many families who have lost a family member to gun violence on the streets. I also think it's important to, another bill that I'm going to be signing here today that was signed last Saturday, but is a very important piece of legislation that the sheriff's has really advocated and made sure got passed. His fine assistant, Rob Moon, was with us in Maywood, where a dogfighting ring was found at a child care facility, if that can be believed. And we were able to sign the bill last Saturday to deal with enhanced penalties for those who would engage in dogfighting at a child care facility or anywhere else. It's important that we not forget that. Also, a bill that I will sign today has to do with what are called poppers, brought into the jail to assist those who would seek to escape from the jail. And these are devices used to try and break open the locks, the locks on the various cells, as well as handcuffs and so on.
Most everyone realizes law enforcement is difficult enough as it is right now, and we've seen it in the last few weeks even more graphically than normal. There's times when we need help, and to have the legislature and the governor help us out has been big. And as someone who had been in the legislature, I can tell you that it's no small feat to get anything done down there. But it is so helpful for us. We talk about the railroad bill. It really was something that we had come across and was particularly concerning to us when we found out about burglaries that would go on in rail yards, and we'd have the movement of firearms back and forth through these yards, and we weren't aware of it. And if things came up missing, we weren't aware of it. And it makes it all the more difficult. But as anyone could agree on, no matter what side of the gun debate someone might be, guns being stolen and put into the neighborhoods is not a good thing. This will go a long way to helping that. And the other measure, too, our correctional officers do a phenomenal job here, and it is truly one of the most difficult jobs you can imagine. And yet, there are times when we need additional help than what they can provide. And one of them is to have it so that detainees here know that there's penalties to certain things they do. And when the governor mentioned about the detainees using devices called poppers to get in and out of their cells, it is no small issue here for us on 2 fronts. One, I just brought this up to show you, this is just from like a year ago, the number of separate work orders for each cell that they have broken using these things and jamming things in the locks. And it's not cheap. And the people from facilities management who work here do a phenomenal job, absolutely phenomenal, trying to keep up with this. But think for 2 seconds what it's like for a correctional officer when you're doing your rounds to be unaware that someone had manipulated the locks on the cell, and at any moment not just themselves, but numerous other people could pop out of their cells and attack either the officer, who's in there quite frequently by themselves, or somebody else from another gang that they want to attack. It's very difficult, to put it lightly. And to have now penalties attached so that we can actually go after the people who are manipulating locks is a big thing. And as I had mentioned to a couple people earlier, where do these things come into play? Well, some people will say, oh, a guy's in here on an armed robbery or murder, what does he care? We find frequently around here, the things that some of the detainees do while they're in here that we now can charge them with are usually carrying tougher penalties than what they're in here in the first place. So it is serious, and they do think about it. So this type of law will make a big deal. It'll help our correctional officers day in, day out, and it'll go a long way to helping law enforcement. So I can't thank the governor enough for his help in this and the legislature for passing this. Thank you.